20 yards, 21 yards. What can go wrong here? Everything. We'll talk about it in a second. Let's move up a little closer. How about here? Somewhere about probably 13 yards. What can go wrong here? We're in at 13 yards. Does it get better than this? I mean, let's shoot that hog at 13 yards. Oh, look at that. Perfect. What could go wrong? How could anything ever go wrong there? Let's go in here. How about this? How about a simple right here at like 8 yards? 8 yards. This is, I mean, this is the gold mine. 8 yards right here. What could go wrong at 8 yards? Everything. Let's talk about it. Let me show you what has gone wrong for me after 70 or so arrows where I've shot at live animals with a camera right on my head, right over top, and I get the slow motion and go frame by frame and see what actually happens when you're hunting at real live animals. Let's break it down for you. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's break it down. You just see me shoot, and we know that they're all kill shots. And, you know, shooting inside of 20 yards, there's a reason we say inside of 20, but having the fact that I, for the last 4 years, I've been filming my hunts over top of my head with a GoPro up here for a lot of shots, with the GoPro on there for my vlogs that I was doing originally, many of them that you didn't see even though I filmed it, but then I would cut it because of YouTube rules, and then I started the Patreon channel. You see the info right here, but I started a Patreon channel so YouTube wouldn't cut that off and I could show that stuff. But all in all, in the last few years, we got 70 arrows that I've shot at animals. Some misses, some hits, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, I mean, so this stuff is out here. But when I shoot, that GoPro sits right over my weak eye and right over top of my arrow right here. So you see it firsthand, and I can go frame by frame by frame by frame. Now, I'll show you a little clip here, but I'm not showing you the hit. Because of the fact that, again, that stuff is reserved for my Patreon channel. Sorry, it is what it is. That's where all my hunting videos go. That's where everybody gets to see this stuff. But going back through that and looking at all these shots and putting stuff into perspective, there's a few realities we got to understand. And every one of these get worse as the distance further. Okay, at 20 yards is worse than it is at 10 yards and so on. So reaction time. Okay, reaction, the animal reacting to the shot. Keep in mind, I shoot a 57-pound longbow. You might hear a little rain. It's starting to rain out here, so you might get a little rain on the tin roof effect. I hope you don't mind it. But my lavalier mic that I brought out here, that I was going to run these and run that to beat that, they're both dead. The batteries are dead. So hopefully that doesn't bother you too much. But that reaction time, again, my bow setup is a 57-pound longbow, 720 grain arrow. So, I mean, it's dead quiet. It's not fast. But let's keep that in mind. But reaction time, this is the animal moving before the arrow hits there. For the time, boom, I let go, to the time that that arrow hits that animal, does the animal move? Either naturally, or does it jump the string, or any of that kind of stuff? 7 out of 10 times, 70% of the time, that animal is moving. Hogs more so than deer, but they are going to be moving. So keep that in mind. The reaction, where that hog or deer is standing when you shoot, even if you don't realize that it's happening, say most of them we cannot see with our naked eye, all right? It's amazing until I go back and watch it, and I load the stuff into Premiere Pro, a professional grade software that I use for my professional video and photography world, and I can go in there and I can go frame by frame by frame, and I can see what happens, and most of the time that arrow will get half or 3/4 of the way there before that animal will react, and in that time he can drop a full body length. The hog can turn, you know, right out of the way. It's amazing, their reaction time, and all this is there for you to see. You guys have seen it all, but it's amazing. So keep that in mind. What that animal is doing when you shoot is most likely 70% not where he's going to be when you shoot him. Okay, that works good and bad. Think about all the times people are like, "Oh my God, my shots are perfect. I drilled him." You probably realistically, you didn't mean to hit him there because he probably moved into that spot. Maybe you would have been too high or been too low and he dropped into it. Maybe you would have been too far forward and he cut and turned or step forward and you hit him there. All these variables come into play, good and bad, but know that 70% of these shots, that animal moves from the time I release to before that arrow gets there. 70% of the time. That's insane. And I do not shoot beyond 20 yards, with the average of them being probably 12. And yet they're still jumping, including that spike that I killed in Georgia at 4 yards right here that I shot like that. Frame by frame, you can see from this, before that arrow gets there, he is already dropping and turning. It's amazing at the speed these animals can move. So keep that in mind. Those of you guys that think shooting 30 yards is a good thing with a bow, you fooled yourself. I'm not kidding. Closer the better, because they're moving. I promise you. Whether it's natural or it's a reaction or whatever it is, but something is making them move 70% of the time. Now, this one's very interesting, okay? This is very interesting. This is the reason that I actually went back and watched all these, was because of this one right here. Misidentifier for exit routes, okay? So we shoot the animal, and he takes off. Oh, there he went, he went through there, and I'm playing in my head. He went through here, he went by that tree, he went there, and there, okay, there he goes. 50% of the time, I'm wrong. I may think he went on this side of this pine tree. In my mind, he did not. He was on the other side of it. I might have think that he swerved through here and he went this way. Like, for example, I might have thought that here's where I shot, and I might have thought this deer went like this, when in reality, he might have done this. Okay, it happens so much, it's mind-blowing. That may just be a personal thing for me, but it blows my mind how often I'm wrong on this. Half the time I'm wrong on the route. Now, not last place seen, but the route, where I seen him go, where I thought, I'll walk there and I'll find blood. And if I walk here, thinking I'm going to find blood, I might find it here or here, but really, he did the exact opposite. Okay, your mind plays these tricks when it's all happening so fast. So that's a very big one, but 50% of the time, I screw up picking the landmarks that, not where I last see him. That one's a dead giveaway most of the time, but picking where I see him wiggle through and where he's going to go to, that's a very hard one for me. Okay, that's a very, very hard one. And I'll bet it is for a lot of people. And I think I'm getting it right. I thought I got it right. And then I get there and the blood shows me that I got it wrong. Okay, so it's pretty interesting how that works. Unseen obstructions, okay? 30% of them, these are there, where there is, especially on hogs, they're moving through, but it's happened to me 3 times this year on deer. Again, you see it in here. But there he is, we'll use deer for example, coming in, that buck's coming through, there he is, oh, right there, perfect, he stops, and then the arrow goes tink, tink, and hits the ground. Arrow flies straight, toom, drops in, because there's a stick there, or a vine, that I did not see. You guys watched in the Patreon last year as I shot at a hog that came in. It was perfect. I snuck right up on him, and I shoot, and my arrow goes, here's the hog, and my arrow goes, and it just hung there, because it got stuck in the vine, and I didn't even see it. Shot, hit a vine, and stayed stuck in that vine, never even made it to the hog. Okay, this stuff happens. So, but about 30% of the time, there is an obstruction that you cannot see out there that may cause you grief somehow. That might be an obstacle. And the further you are distance-wise, you won't see it. Like that shot on that hog, it was about 20, maybe pushing 21 yards. I'd never even seen that. On that deer that you saw in the Midwest Vlogs this year, on here, my Midwest Vlog trips, when you saw that deer, bink, and it dropped down. I never saw that. Again, 20-yard shot-ish, maybe 18, 19, but when you start getting out there a little further, those obstructions are much harder to see, but they are a reality you got to take into consideration. Correctly picking the last spot I seen them. Now, you heard me say I have a hard time with the exit routes, especially when they're moving through stuff. The picking the last spot that they go by, it's crucial, because a lot of times we want to just jump right there for blood, okay? When I say 60% of the time, I'm being pretty realistic, because I'm talking about the exact spot. Now, the area, I would say I'm 100% of the time. I know exactly where he passed through within a 10-yard area. But picking the exact spot, unless it's a tree that he went by, But remember, I'm down here in the swamps, okay? Sometimes there's no trees. Sometimes it's gallberry, or it's broomgrass, or it's things like this, or it's river cane. Trying to pick that exact spot in those scenarios is a lot more difficult if you don't have a tree. So I find myself going, okay, he was 25 yards to the west of that tree. In those situations, I'm about 60% of the time, where I got to get over there and I still can't find it. I got to loop all over looking for it until I do find it. But it's an interesting piece of information for this. So the boil down here is, even though we keep our shots inside of 20, we have so much stuff working against us. It's almost amazing that we hit anything these days anyway. But when you take into all these considerations and these factors, it's tremendously difficult for us to do this. Okay, it's just something that's there, and it's not. I'm not making excuses for myself or making excuses for anybody. I'm just saying that there's a lot of variables here, and what do they tell us? What is our takeaway from this? How do we beat some of these and keep them lower? Okay, it's a simple thing. This one we beat by being close. Close as you possibly can. This one we beat by paying better attention, but also by being close. Okay, if this animal that we shoot is 20 yards away, and then he goes 20 yards, or he starts running away from us, we're already 20 yards away and we're trying to identify where he traveled to. That's very difficult to do. But if he's only 12 yards away, that's almost half the distance, and we can see better the route he goes. We can see a stump, we can see a log, we can see a shiny leaf, we can see things as we build that in our head as he's taking off. So getting close helps this one tremendously. What about this one? Again, getting close will help you because you can see those obstructions. You know they're there. There's a difference between a deflection because you thought you could fit through the hole and a deflection it was completely unseen. You will greatly minimize these unseen ones if you are keeping your distances close. Correctly picking the last spot. This one correlates right along with this one. The key, keep them close. Okay, that's what the whole purpose of this whole thing is. 70 arrows filmed at eye view right over the top of my head. These numbers, this one especially, because this is out of our control. This is in our control, this is in our control, and this is in our control. Okay, for the most part. Okay, these ones here. This one, we cannot control this one. That is a part of the animal. That is the biggest factor at 70%. What can we do to minimize it? Get close. Get that arrow there as quick as possible. I would even recommend shooting. I'm not going to say shoot light arrows, but a quicker arrow obviously helps. But I think a quieter bow cancels that out. So I don't think there's any solution. There's no way to beat this. There's nothing that you can do with a bow that is going to beat this. I don't care if you shoot a compound. I don't care what you shoot. Nothing's going to beat this reaction time. And again, keep in mind, I'm talking public land. You guys that are on private land with undisturbed animals or animals that aren't that concerned about things, that's a whole different world. We're talking the public land, highly pressured realm. This is a legit, serious concern. And if there's nothing that you take away from this more to a reason to keep your shots as close as you possibly can, it is that one right there. So just some interesting statistics as I took a couple of hours going through these and looking at these things. Like I said, many of these you see on here. There's there's about 25 of them that you do not, 25 or 30 that you do not see on here that were, again, when I was making vlog information, or I was making the vlogs public, but I could not show the shots because of YouTube rules. And there's also a couple from back then that I was just experimenting with this stuff, and I wasn't even putting out hunting videos on them, but I was learning it and playing with it. So there's a lot of interesting information here, but the fact that they are all filmed right over the arrow, right out of that eye, right over the arrow, and I can slow these things down and go frame by frame by frame and see exactly what happens. It's mind-blowing, with this one here being the biggest one. It's a massive shocker. So food for thought. Take away with it what you will. Think what you want. If you want to continue shooting at animals at 25, 30, 40 yards, you think it's okay, that's your call, whatever you want to do. For me, everything I read here and everything that I saw when I started doing this tells me keep it 20 and under. 100% keep it 20 and under, and the closer the better. If I can get them at 10 or 12, it's pretty much a slam dunk. It's just amazing how the reality of this comes into play. Thanks for watching.